Hello and welcome back to Starter Set Season 2, episode number 3. Today, guys, welcome back to the studio, Gibby and DVN. It's good to be back with you guys.
Yep.
Welcome.
Good to be here. Woohoo.
Yeah. It's a nice evening. We're recording a day late. Episode's going to come out a day late. But we do want to open up with, this is a Gibby question, and I think it's one of the best. You're competing against two others, but I still think it's one of the best.
That's true. We'll see how it stacks up a couple months from now.
Yeah.
I'm proud of my question. Yeah, the questions only get better from here, but we're
you
raising
came up
the
with
bar.
this one like on your own, which is
Yes, I did.
on
the fly.
Good for you.
So
Thank you.
on the fly. Gibby wanted to know what is like if you were going to be a card in a card game, what would your keyword be? Like if you had to
if
pick
you as a person
had
were
a
a card
keyword.
in a card game.
Yeah, not a special ability, but like if your card was going to have, it would be fun to create like full blown cards for each other eventually, right? That had
that would be
you had
fun.
all of your stats and everything on it, and you create your own special ability and put your keywords on it.
That'd be so fun.
I'm sure
That is where my mind went from the jump, but I did water it down for the purposes of being like a succinct question for the podcast.
maybe we'll build like each month we'll build another piece of our card. Maybe that's what we'll do. That
And then we'll
maybe
release
that's
the card when it's all done.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. There we go. DBN. How about you, though? Do you have, what's your keyword? What's your favorite, the keyword for DBN?
Yeah. Well, it's funny. I think part of this that could be amusing is what do we think each other's keywords are versus what do we think our own keywords are.
Oh, okay.
But I think I'm gonna pick for myself resist or shield. One of those ones where you take some of the damage off the top. You know what I mean? Where
like armor.
Armor, yeah. Or in Lorcana, it's resist, and I think I have resist, and that like it's not that I in my life, it's not that I can't get down on things, but like it takes a little bit for me to like fully up and quit something. I kind of it's not, and I don't even think it's necessarily a thick skin proverbially, but it's more like I'm just stubborn. So I'm just gonna
It takes
go
you a
with,
little bit harder to get, a little bit longer to get in, and a little bit harder to quit something.
That's true. Yes, it's hard to get going, and then it's also I probably if my time spent playing Pokemon Unite shows anything, it's just I hold on to things maybe a little too long.
You just care so deeply.
That's the nice way of putting it. And then you're just like, no, you're just stubborn. But anyways,
No, I was trying to give you a good positive compliment.
Well, thank you.
I'll
take my compliment.
Now I'm stuck thinking about what your guys' keywords are, and that's no. So my keyword, I actually think, like based off of my personality, and this isn't. I can't remember if this is an actual keyword in LOR or not. I don't think that it is. So I think support is a keyword, and I think that I could land with support, but I prefer. That's an LOR. It's in other games too, like
it's also in
the thing to your left,
Lorcana right now.
Okay, it's also in Lorcana, exactly. But I like I don't know. I guess I feel like I'm trying to get my fingers on all of the games that I've played. I think there's one that's like a rally that's kind of very similar to like what
being
Poppy
able to swing
does
again
in LOR. Well, no, like when we all attack together, I buff everybody who attacks with me, right?
Yeah.
I think that would be it. Like rally the troops, and like we're gonna work together and win this thing together type of a feel. And I'm feeling like there's definitely like in one of the card games that I've played at one point, like rally was that. Like if you had rally,
Tessel.
Tessel.
It's when you attacked, you got a certain effect, and it would be different things. It would be like rally 1, and it would buff your hand. But yeah, creatures in your hand.
I knew it. Okay, I knew it was from somewhere. I just couldn't put my finger on where
Makes
it was
sense
from.
that it's
Like
from Tessel,
desperately
too.
searching like Gwent keywords right now, trying to figure it out.
Yeah.
Rally from Tessel, I think would be mine. Just like the ability to help out and buff whenever we go into battle with everybody else. Gibby, how about you?
So I am very much like a community-centric kind of person, and I love my friends, and I love being with people. I would think for me, it would be something to the attune of allegiance. Like it's either something around like a rally tag, or it would be something where like if I played a certain thing, or if I was a certain thing, and the top card of my deck was something that was like I had the same kind of clan tag as me, then I would get like a buff off of that. Something that is very like board centric and team oriented, I think would definitely be me. I was really tempted to pick elusive slash shadow slash stealth slash evasive, all the same keyword, but I think that is something that people get really, really sick of really quickly, and I would be too self-conscious about that, so that cannot be me.
The one I was going to give you was Conspiracy from Gwent.
What in the...
So Conspiracy was the one that if you had a character you played that was a spy on the other side of the board, the Conspiracy trigger could happen. It would like benefit you. Not because I think that you're a betrayer or like a spy, but because I think that you're charismatic and friendly enough that you could walk across enemy lines and be like, "Hey guys, remember me? I'm on your team." And they would be like, "Oh, that's yeah, true. that guy is on our team." That's a
better answer for me than what I came up with. I'm going with that. That'll be my keyword.
Like the positive side of Conspiracy, though, like none of the negative. I was like, what?
It's like a white hat hacker.
Yeah. What is the most charismatic, the most sort of like outgoing keyword in a card game? And I'm like, it's got to be the one that you can just enter the enemy line and they don't even know that you're there.
I'll take it. I'll take it.
What keywords, just while we're on this, then we can move on. Like, what keywords do you guys gravitate towards just in general? Like, what is your favorite like generic keyword to like play with in different games?
I know mine.
Go ahead.
It's got to be lifesteal.
Ooh.
Like that to me is one that I think I like to play more of a mid-rangey kind of board state, and I think that is one of the best keywords to counteract a rather aggressive play style to kind of help sustain a board and going to give yourself enough momentum to be able to outlast your opponent, and whether it's keeping your own health total alive or whatever it might be. It's not in every game because it doesn't fit the mold of like what the objective is of every card game that we've played, but lifesteal is the one that I always gravitate towards.
If I had to pick one that was like really generic, I would probably go with like a rush or a charge or a haste. Anything that lets me get down and control the board right away. When we played our weekend of Lorcana together, Rafiki, the purple Rafiki was like 3 mana, 3/3 charge, right? A rush. And that was like one of my favorite cards that we played with. But if I was to choose like maybe a little bit more niche, because this really doesn't exist in every game, and it's more of like a mechanic. It's like a genre of mechanics. Like it's not really a keyword, but it can be manipulated in a lot of different ways. It's just like graveyard mechanics in general. Like the idea of dumping big dudes into the graveyard and then pulling them back on the board. Tessel had that in spades, which is one of the things that I loved about Tessel. That was one of your favorite decks, DBN, too, I think.
Yeah, some of the Reanimator stuff that you could do with Odin and Necromancer and buffing things while they're in your discard pile and stuff like that,
Yeah. So, DBN, in this two-part question, what is the keyword that you gravitate towards, you look for in a game right away?
I really like cards that have effects when they die. So I like to get value from things before they go to the grave. I like to play... Similar to Gibby, I like to play mid-range strategies, but I much prefer to play proactive. And so I have always hated board wipes. And so I enjoy cards that, make generic board wipes less appealing to the opponent and make them actually have to think about how they're doing things. So, whether that's, Death Rattle and Hearthstone. I mean, when I first started playing Hearthstone, I played, mid-range Hunter, and you play Rat Pack and Savannah Highmane and stuff, and you just get consolation prizes when things die, and that has sort of trickled over into all the other sorts of things. And all the other games I've always, and I like the ability to sort of like detonate my own thing manually and give myself an out, to certain more like high skill plays. So I really enjoy Death Rattle, Last Gasp, whatever you want to call it, but those mechanics where when it goes away, you get a consolation prize. I like that.
Yeah. Well, hey man, the perfect combination of that was N'Zoth, because you could Death Rattle and resurrect everything from the dead.
That was very fun.
Yeah, and amen to that.
Or just play Yogg Saron and kill your own stuff.
True. You just get to roll the spell lottery for 10 or 11 times. It's very fun. I miss that deck. That was the funnest thing. And then they tried to do the similar thing with the shaman, the Shudderwalk, and that was just awful. That one was the worst. And then but Yogg-Saron was the realist, the real OG.
Well, we made a commitment in this season to cut to conversation about the card game that we're covering quicker. And I will say this, we weren't quick this week, but we were quicker than last season. And so you know,
yeah, it's true.
When you start something new, you really got to get in the flow of it.
And at least we had a theme. We had a topic, You
weren't just listening to us talk about the Lord knows
day.
What, Yeah.
Destiny. Destiny. We were talking about Destiny too.
Yeah, Destiny or Ultimate Frisbee or something. So, but this episode, we're going to be wrapping up our conversation around Warhammer 40K Warpforge, offering basically our final thoughts on it. Now, typically we'll cover a game, we'll delve a little more thoroughly, and we will cover it for 4 weeks because we started season 2 of Starter Set a little bit later in the year than what we not than we originally planned, but just like we gave ourselves a break at the beginning of January to kind of get the rebrand set up and all of those things. We're only going to be covering Warpforge for 3 weeks, and we are going to be moving on to a new card game next week, which we will announce at the end of this episode. However, both of us had a little bit of time to take our finishing dabblings in Warhammer 40K Warpforge, the card game. And so we're going to talk a little bit about those final dabblings and then give you our final verdict, thumbs up, thumbs down. We got a few little articles and a little surprise in between here and there. So I'm going to kick it back over to Gibby and just ask, Gibby, how was your last 7 days in Warpforge? Did you get much game time in? Did you get to explore your factions a little bit more?
I did. I got to explore most of, if not all of, the starter decks at minimum. I felt that Warpforge is unique in that they give you quite a few options, pre-made options for each of the factions out the gate. So I really wanted to take advantage of that as a new player tool to kind of get a fully understood perspective of what kind of value is Warpforge giving you up front and understanding and wanting to draw you into the game based off of what they're just giving you at face value up front. Not necessarily about what you could obtain from packs, because I think there's also some translation lost within such a deep card pool about what you're obtaining. You may get a card, go, oh, this looks really, really cool, but not really have a whole lot of context to put it to. So I wanted to focus my kind of final week in Warpforge for the focuses of Starter Set on the starter decks within Samhain and within the Saltek Dynasty. So across playing all of the starter decks, what I found is because the card pools are so deep, you have a wide variety of strategies, right? Like they're not going to almost like, and contrary, as we've already talked about for something like a Hearthstone with like a Hunter clan, where majority, if not all of the decks that work are aggressive in nature and just some variation of an aggressive deck. That's not the case here because there are so many cards. By default, you're going to have a lot of different deck strategies. Some of the clan tags themselves kind of just create decks. It's just like, oh, mash a bunch of cards into the deck that all have this kind of keyword, and you'll come up with a deck that kind of works, but it's
kind of
usually
builds itself a little bit.
Some of it can build itself, but there's also a lot of options for tech choices, which is really cool just because there are so many different cards. But I wasn't playing around with teching my decks a whole lot. I was just playing the starter decks. I really had a good time playing the different strategies. I found I really like aggro in this game. I like getting out ahead of my opponent, and it was a really big mental reset for me on trying to get good strategy mechanics and basics and fundamentals in this game. So, for example, my card game that I've been playing a lot of is Lorcana, and in Lorcana, at a base, when you play a card, it has the typical term we call summoning sickness, just like it does in Warpforge, but you're pretty like your character is safe from being attacked until it is exerted that you used it to gain points, gain lore, or you've attacked something and it lived, or you used it to sing a song of some sort. Like, unless you've done something and you've exerted the character sideways, your character is pretty safe when on the turn that it comes down. The minute you drop something in Warpforge on the board, it can be attacked. And that was a big like mental like thing I had to get over and like reset my brain on. So
because you've been playing Lorcana so much that's right. Just like your brain is just functioning, and that is unique about Lorcana. Like that, like you have to exhaust to be able to be attacked. So your first round that you're down, you can't really be targeted. That's a very unique thing to Lorcana that isn't. I think it's new player friendly and younger player friendly.
I think it's I think friendly is the great word to put that perspective on playing cards in that kind of pacing. But Warhammer is the Warpforge is a lot less forgiving in that the minute you put something down, if they've already got a unit down on the board, say goodbye if you don't have a way to protect it. And I think it's
safe to say that Warhammer and Warpforge are never meant to be friendly, and that's a word that's very rarely associated with the IP.
I think it's very much trying to raise the ceiling on it's wants experienced high-level players to be playing the game, even just from the way that you operate in the basic mechanics, is a pull away that I took from all of my time in the game. But yeah, just to wrap around on why I liked aggro. I liked aggro because I could play a proactive strategy, get myself out on board, and utilize some of that presence to keep my opponent at bay as long as they were playing things. Ironically, in this game, I actually found direct damage to be a lot less appealing. Personally, I liked a lot more of a board-centric strategy in Warpforge. I found that to be a lot more effective early, mid-game, and late game, being able to sustain that. There's a lot of really great sustain mechanics in this game where direct damage kind of just, unless it's like a board wipe, kind of just feels flat. So it feels like you lose out on tempo. So, and maybe that's just the way that they've costed the units, so that way direct damage isn't overpowered like it is in some other games. And then maybe that's a positive. But yeah, I really enjoyed playing my two factions and seeing everything that they had. I made my video on the Scarabs, and I think that was my favorite deck to play.
Okay. Nice. I'll jump in, and then DBN would love to know what your week of Warpforge was like. For me, I had one insight that I gleaned, one thing that I really don't like from this week, and one thing that I actually really did like from this week. And I promise those three things together will two of them at least will be linked. So the insight that I had was that this game on the surface, because of the seemingly like lack of variety of artwork within the factions, that makes it easy to confuse one card to the next, combined with a couple of other things, which I'll talk about in what I don't like, makes this game look more complex than I think it actually is. I think as I've played it, what I have found to be the case is this game is actually more simple than what I thought it was. It has a ton of keywords in it. So the learning curve is all kind of in the wrong place, in the fact that the learning curve isn't like I get this, and there's a combo. That's something I could discover. The learning curve is all in the, hold up, let me read that again. Where is that again? Hold up, what's that keyword mean? Wait, that keyword actually has this keyword in its description. What does the keyword inside the keyword mean? And what I found was the game, once you begin wrapping your mind around some of those things, it's not as much complexity there as I thought there was. And I think the complexity is increased by the thing that I really discovered, and I think I mentioned it this week, but I really discovered that I don't like, which is in the design of the layouts of the cards. I really do not. I'm a big fan of having faction tags and like tribal tags. Like, we freaking wanted tribal tags. We wanted troll tags for a really long time inside of LOR. Let me make the troll deck, right? Give me the troll guy. I like tribal stuff. I play elves and magic if I ever play. I have an elf commander deck. So they have that in this game, but it's sort of like it's almost like all in the wrong places where it's confusing because they look like they're keywords, but they're not keywords. And they look like they're important text, but a lot of the cards, you look at it and you're like, oh man, that card has text on it. And you look and you're like, actually, this is just a vanilla tutu. It just has the positioning of all of its factions makes it look like it has text that it doesn't have, and it gives across almost the appearance of complexity that doesn't exist. And once I figured out that I just stopped looking at that section of the card because it doesn't matter to me, that helped me understand, oh, actually, there's not that many cards to learn here. This does have some pack filler cards like any other card game does. It just didn't seem like that. And then the one thing that I liked, at first I did not like this. So when you play the game, as you get wins, you earn skulls. And those skulls unlock rewards every day. And you can earn up to 100 skulls. Now, I don't know how many you get in a PvP win because I couldn't win in PvP. However, I did win in PvE with the starter decks, and it gives you like 3 skulls each win. You might be doing the math there and realizing that to get 100 skulls in a day and max out your daily rewards is a crap ton of PvE wins. Originally, I was like, this game is grindy as heck. I don't like this. I can't max out my rewards today. Almost want to throw my hands in the air and give up. However, other card games, when I get into them, I am upset when they punish me for playing. I don't like it when it gets to the point that I feel like I'm being punished because I want to play your game. Please don't hurt me for wanting to play your game more. I think something that Warpforge does well, despite being grindy, and I think its monetary system is archaic and maybe just outright wrong in some cases, I do like the fact that I feel like I could play more games than I have time for as a father and the things that I have going on in life, right? I can't play that many games. But if I had a day where I was off and I could probably sit down and grind Warpforge for hours, even on PvE, and not max out my rewards for the day. The game isn't going to punish me for wanting to play their game. I have to give kudos. Instead of saying it's grindy, I got to say kudos to the company for that, because I do appreciate the Warpforge team giving me incentive to keep playing if I wanted to keep playing. Yeah, that's my one insight. One thing I don't like, one thing I did like this week. DBN, you got something for us?
Yes and no. You asked what my week of Warpforge was like, and I didn't have one. I burnt out on this game so incredibly fast, it's not even funny. And I don't even know if burnt out was the case. Like, I tried to find something that would capture me. And I think last episode, I talked about how really the only thing keeping me in the game was the funny little orc guys. And that ceased this week. Like, that just ceased to be enough. You know, the game is ugly. I mean, the artwork is cool, but you can never really see and value the artwork unless you're in the deck manager, right? Like, not at full screen. The board is poorly laid out. The cards are a pain to try to read and to try to quickly skim. Obviously we talked about the monetization system. I didn't even get to the point where I got fed up with it because I was like not getting things that were interesting or cool. And I also just genuinely think that the gameplay, I agree, the gameplay, I would go a step further in that, like, oh, it's not actually as hard as it seems. It's just a little bit wordy. I would go as far as to say that the wordiness is a cover-up for a otherwise dull and largely ripped off game. I don't mean to be the stick in the mud. I have a reputation. I am aware that I'm the negative host of the podcast. Okay. I'll never shake that one off.
Well, when you're with the eternally optimistic, it's hard. It's hard.
Yeah, somebody had that. Somebody had a comment to that extent.
Yeah. Someone came to your defense.
Yeah. But, I mean, the reality is that I listened to what you guys said and largely felt like, and don't take this the wrong way, but you guys were trying to find reasons to excuse an otherwise not particularly great game. And for me, my gameplay time is, it's precious to me. And unlike plenty of other games that we've played where I was like, I said this last week, even DC Dual Force for the entire month, I was tied into it enough that I would boot it up a couple times a week during my personal time and click around in it. Right. And I couldn't even get that far with this week. So, it was a big, sort of realization to me where I'm like, I have time. Do I want to play Warpforge? And I literally thought I should play Warpforge. And then I thought, I do not want to play Warpforge. Like, I objectively even the guilt of knowing I have to do a podcast about it was not enough to get me to play Warpforge. And that's a problem, right?
Well, to be entirely fair, like I basically didn't boot up. My insights were from playing the game a little bit, but it was more from going on Reddit and beginning to look at articles and seeing what other people thought that
I didn't even get that far.
My opinion.
I didn't even get that far. My opinion was made up. I mean, the reality is that like after we recorded, I played maybe one more session. Did not enjoy the session. The amusingness of the little orc guys is still present. They're funny. Like, listen, if I ever play Warhammer, like the actual tabletop, I know what my faction is. But man, the game is. I mean, let me put it in this way. I'll just stick to one topic here, which is the thing that you brought up about the card text being overloaded and using a lot of words to say not a lot, right? There is something to be said for the fact that good games, and by the way, I launched the same, albeit not as harsh, but the same criticism I levy against Runeterra, which is that their card text is overloaded on a lot of things, but especially champions and champion related things. And every champion has to have its own complete new keyword and mechanic that you have to learn the rules behind. Forging, and there's another one. There was Reforge and there was Forge. The fact in Runeterra there's Forge and Reforge or something like that is ludicrous to me. But anyways, they stopped thinking about the player experience of trying to learn and read the cards. And I think that that's something that, like, we have two current examples that I play of games. We have Lorcana. Lorcana is in their first year of releasing the game. They're about to go into their third set. It's really easy to say, well, yeah, their cards are, they keep their cards relatively, understandable and comprehensible. They are still printing cards with no effect. Okay, but I think Gibby can attest to the fact that Lorcana has some cards that are either blank or have a single keyword, but the way that it is, the point spread of things, well, Pacha is a bad example, but the point spread of them and the stat spread is really makes them good cards or not good cards. Prince Eric is a fantastic card. Maybe Gibby can find that in his little pile there. Prince Eric, fantastic card. Inkable 2 cost, 1 attack, 3 defense, and it has Challenger +2, which all it means is when it attacks, it has 2 attack. But that card...
I don't have Prince Eric, but I do have another one that is appealing in this manner.
Okay, we got Caterpillar. This is a card that has everybody thinking and humming because they're like, wow, it's got weaknesses, but it's got strengths. How can we lean into its 3 questing at such an early phase of the game? Wow, that's really cool. The fact that a card that's blank and it's a caterpillar, mind you, is interesting, and it doesn't need a wall of text to be interesting, tells you that is solid fundamental game design. Now, okay. Now, so I can already hear the counter arguments. Well, Lorcana is a simpler game than something like Runeterra or something like Warpforge. And I say, okay, let me raise you. Well, I would argue it is simpler, maybe not, less competitive. I mean, it's very competitive.
Accessible.
accessible.
I'll give it more accessible. I think that Lorcana is deceptively complex in your decision making.
That is true, but let's, for the sake of this argument, say it's simple, or that somebody thinks it's simple. Let's, for the sake of the argument, I would raise them Pokemon. Probably, of all of the card games on the market right now, one of the, and I say this as somebody who is struggling to be competitive at this game, despite having been competitive at tons of other games, this is a complicated game. And yet, the cards are relatively simple. You will have cards like Nest Ball. Search your deck for basic Pokemon, put it on your bench. Powerful, in tons of decks. Simple. Your Pokemon, your big, powerful, beat-sticking Pokemon. You know how many of them have walls of text? Very few. Very few. And when you have a card that is complicated, typically it's the center point of the deck, not every single card in the deck. So Pokemon does a very nice job, in my opinion, of taking, cards, and even the complex cards. They find a way to display the text in a way that makes sense. They have not fallen into this idea of burdening their game with keywords. They just tell you what the card does. And there are cards that do very similar things. Okay? Can you imagine if Pokemon decided that they wanted to have a keyword for all of the different ball search? They want a keyword for all of the different energy retrieval. They want a keyword for all of the different energy acceleration. They want a keyword for all of the different, evolution things. Like, they don't need to do that. Just write what the card does. And if it's similar to another card, you don't feel the need to lump them all together into these arbitrary bolded terms. So my point is,
a very interesting point.
It can be done well, regardless of the complexity of the game. And that's something I've only recently come to realize, which makes me even less willing to excuse bad card text. And that is something that...
It's funny, because you think about, what is the point of a keyword? Mm-hmm. The point of a keyword is supposed to be a shorthand version to describe what an effect of what a card does. And it has become this reverse logic of keywords are now a burden because developers and games are so used to the idea of keywords that they're overloading cards because they take up so few space on the text box of a card that you can fit multiple of them in there, and it's diluting the value of the card, the originality of the cards, the usability and the readability of the cards, as we're kind of going through here. The short form accessibility that was meant to be keywords is now becoming a burden because there's just too many of them, and I kind of almost want to call it greed, for lack of a better way of describing it.
I would actually argue that it's laziness. I think that it is lazy when they're like, we have this idea for a card and it's kind of complex and we have to fit it in this tiny little window without lowering the font, and then we compress. Okay, fine. We'll don't lump these things in the keyword, and then they don't think about what happens after that. And instead of going back to the drawing board and saying, okay, clearly we don't have a way of formatting these cards in a way that if we have an effect that we want to see, it makes sense. And this is why we see it in digital card games, guys. And we don't see this physical card games. They have to make it work. They have to send the cards to the damn printer. You know what I mean? But digital card games are the ones where we're seeing this keyword thing get out of control. And I think Gibby's right to a certain extent. I think that the idea of what a keyword is has diluted. But on the flip side, I also think that there is a certain laziness in the digital space around the programming and the visual design, and not wanting to have to do something like, I don't know, recode how big the card is when it pops up on your full screen when you select the card, things like that. So anyways, that's where I land on
that was some of Yeah, that was some of our thoughts from playing the game this week. We're, of course, going to give our final thumbs up and thumbs down, but we had a really unique treat this week where Jeff, the admin from our Discord, actually recorded his thoughts on Warpforge as he's been taking this adventure with us and playing the game with us, which is super freaking cool. And so just shout out to Jeff for being willing to do that. We think that's freaking awesome. And yeah, so like we're super pumped about the fact that he's shared it with us. We're going to go ahead and play it for you so you can listen to what Jeff thought, but we also want to encourage you to do the same thing, because I began thinking, man, how cool would it be if the last episode of each game that we cover, we played 3 or 4 different reviews from listeners, and then we talked about those reviews and how their perspectives might differ from our own. So we're going to kick that off this year, and if you would like to do that, you can at any time record what you think about a game that we're playing. You could take it a 1 to 2 minute max window to let us know your thoughts. I'm not going to put 15 minutes for you on here. 1 to 2 minutes. And then I want you to send me a link to it or upload it for me over Discord, or you can email it to me. We have an email, eslegendscast@gmail.com. If you don't want to use that, mark at lux, L-U-X, digitalchurch.com. You can send it there, and we'll play your recording, if it's in that time frame, on one of our episodes when we cover a game, and let you know how we just want to interact with what your thoughts are. So let's go ahead and listen to Jeff's review that he sent to us this week on Warpforge.
Hey, starter set. This is Jeff giving you my 90-second review of Warpforge. I did like how the ranged and melee attacks kind of gave just a variety compared to other games. I thought that was pretty clever. I enjoyed the Space Orcs and the Black Legion. I didn't really like any of the other factions, though. I didn't really like how the games felt too much the same, and they were really slow, it seemed, at times. There's often situations where you play a unit, and then before you even get to use it, it just dies. It either has no melee or no ranged, and they just get destroyed by the enemy units. I feel like if you have board control, then it's really hard to swing the game to the opposite end. You're either overwhelmed and you just die, or you have too many units and your opponent just dies. I thought some of the keywords were actually really strong, like Vanguard. Regen seemed pretty useful too. I don't know why they made common blue and rare green that just goes totally against pretty much any game that I've ever played. So I thought that was really confusing. When you open a pack with 5 blue and you're like, sweet, and then you realize, oh wait, those are the common cards and whatever. And it's funny that they choose a faction and then give you missions that force you to play a lot of. They want you to choose a faction, but they give you missions that force you to play a lot of different specific factions. So it's like they want loyalty, but they also force you to not have loyalty through missions. It's also kind of silly. Thanks, guys. Bye.
What an awesome...
Very interesting.
Yeah.
Thank you, Jeff. That's amazing.
Jeff, you're the man. You always are.
I mean, echoing some of our feelings, I don't even know. I think I noticed the difference in rarity, like the swapping of the gems. I'm not sure that I opened enough pack or knew what was rare and what I think I just thought I got good packs.
Yeah, I don't think I comprehended that switch either.
It's very different when, as compared to like Hearthstone, where it's common, gold, legendary, right? Like you don't have anything like that. So I'm seeing the things pop up. I'm like, all right, I think blue's good, right? Okay, all right, cool. I didn't even really track like
rare.
Yeah, golden rare. Yeah. But yeah, that's a great point. It's funny too. Like, Jeff liked some of the keywords. That's different from some of the things we said. I think the other thing was, the games did feel slow sometimes. Again, one of the things that I sort of connected to was like, yeah, it just feels a little grindy at times. And then simultaneously, like there's a certain snowball inevitability, which I only have encountered the same way when we did our return to Hearthstone. And it had that same kind of, okay, the game's really slow, but also you get to a point where it's inevitable. I can keep playing this game and drag it out, but I'm going to win. Or more often when I was playing against the computer, it was the same thing of like, I'm going to win, but the computer keeps just throwing roadblocks up, not enough to ever turn the tide of battle again, but just enough to just sort of
buy
slowly
another turn.
To buy another turn. It's that's something that, like, by the way, free advice here. You'll hear this a lot in the card game community, but if you're new to card games, there's a thing called playing to win instead of playing not to lose. And it definitely feels like the game gives you a lot of tools to play not to lose, but it can be really hard, to Gibby's point earlier, to actually play anything that'll live to the next turn once you're behind.
Yeah, Jeff seemed to echo that same sentiment. And I don't know about you guys, maybe Mark did, since he was the one that received the recording. I hadn't listened to Jeff's recording before making any of my earlier comments in this episode. So it's interesting that Jeff had the same insight that I did of it is tough to get a board state going if you aren't the first one on board to be able to develop, which almost from a turn perspective, this is a game where I know this is a theory and a conversation when you get deep into, like, I don't know, the higher levels of play or maybe the more consistent player base, but turn going first versus going second in a game, it almost feels like going first in Warpforge is overwhelmingly better, just because you get that early development of your board and you can kind of control it from there. But yeah, I do think that they do have some strong keywords, as Jeff said, for better or for worse in the game. But I really liked his comments on kind of the tempo of it. I think it's interesting that he found the Black Legion very interesting as a faction. From what I remember, Jeff likes to build towers, so this makes a lot of sense for him as a player.
Yeah, the buffing stuff. Yeah, Jet, once again, appreciate you sending in your review, and would love anybody in the future when we review another game, and we're talking about it, for you to send in your thoughts as well. Once again, that like 1 to 2 minute time slot is perfect. Gives us a little bit of an idea, about what other people were thinking about it. Seems like Jeff had a lot of similar thoughts to us in the end of the day. Before we move on and give our final verdict, thumbs up, thumbs down, is this game staying on our phone, or is it getting deleted after this episode, or has it been deleted already? I wanted to read the last line of an article that I read. So I looked up just Warpforge review, and I got one from The Gamer. The Gamer.com. And so the title was Warpforge is an interesting deck builder plagued by its monetization. Now, the article goes through a whole bunch of different things where it's like, hey, guess what? This is going to be $20. This is going to be $30. This is going to be $20, right? Goes through all the stuff. How expensive the game is a lot of what the article is about. Also, they highlight that card backs in this game are $50, which...
Stupid.
I did not get far enough in the cosmetic store to notice that, so maybe that's changed since this was written. But if that is the case, that is absurd. They wrap the article, though, in something that I think helped me encapsulate what my feelings in Warpforge have been, and it's this. Warpforge is a fine game, which I think might be about exactly how I feel. It is a fine game. It's not fun. It's not great. It's fine. It's simple but engaging, and I was figuring out nice synergies between my cards quickly. It's a game for Warhammer fans, as the battles themselves are not complex enough to hold their own without any knowledge of the intellectual property. But if you can build a fun deck for free, then it's worth a whirl. I'm just not sure that'll be possible. And I certainly felt that in this game. I don't think there's any way that I could build a deck that I would thoroughly enjoy without spending a pretty sizable amount of money to be able to build it, A. B, without having an expansive knowledge of the Warhammer properties. I just didn't find myself getting pulled in without a 3D model army downstairs. I didn't get myself pulled in to their card counterparts. I also read several articles that said that, like, the Ultramarines, which I guess there's Space Marines, and then there's factions of Space Marines, we have the Ultramarines in this game, which evidently are the most boring and vanilla of all of the Space Marines. Evidently, there's like a wolf clan that are all like Space Marine Vikings, which
we know you're always looking for your next hit of Vikings. Inspiration.
Yes.
Of Vikings.
Please give me Vikings. Exactly. Sir, please Vikings right now. So evidently there's other stuff out there that they didn't, and there was a lot of people on Reddit and stuff that were just overall confused about this game. Like the community at large was confused about the monetization or upset about it, but then also just confused about why they chose exactly the factions that they chose when they introduced, because the factions that they chose aren't even the most popular factions by far for Warhammer fans. And maybe you're waiting to release expansions that will get people excited about the game. But you have to have interesting enough base factions to get people to download it to begin with. Or play long enough to even get to when your next content release is. And so seems as though the community at large had similar feelings to us, including Warhammer fans who came to the game and got a lot of disappointment not being able to find their favorite faction in the game at all. So with all of that being said, final thoughts. Thumbs up, thumbs down. Is this staying on your device? Do you think you're going to be playing this at the end of the year? Now, that's a long way away. That's like 12 months away. And we've had a lot of, I would have sworn to you Snap would have been one that I kept playing, and I haven't. So I'm a lot more tempered in my responses for final thoughts now. Gibby, how about you? Give us your final thoughts on the game with your final thumbs up or thumbs down.
Yeah, me too. I've had to kind of take a look in the mirror and make sure that my responses are honest and true, because I think I was on brand, but a bit too optimistic on some of the games we played in 2023 about what was going to stay on my phone or what was going to continue to be played. And it more or less it stayed in my heart, but not on my phone. And I think this is not even in that category. I think I had a good time looking through the different factions and looking through the different starter decks and giving the game a fair chance to see what it had to offer. But ultimately, I think we've all collectively come to I'm not going to speak for anybody else. I think I have come to the understanding that this game will never be one that I want to pour the type of money into to unlock what is necessary to play it at a level that is going to feel appealing and feel consistent enough. I think it is a game that is overcomplicated enough, and I really I have realized that I do find the characters and the art and the theme and the design direction to be really important for the longevity of my personal interests, and I just don't think that Warpforge has it for me. I think it's a bit too intense in the art and also not unique enough within the individual units to continue to capture me. So I'm going to give this one a gentle behind the shed and put it out of its misery.
So to be clear,
nothing gentle about that.
To be clear, that's a thumbs down, Gibby, right?
That's a thumbs
yeah,
down.
That was as gentle as it could. So gentle, in fact, that you didn't even say it.
Down.
You were like, "Oh, I'm scared to say the actual words of thumbs down. I don't want to hurt anyone's feelings." Very on brand. Please
don't take
Gibby.
Please don't take my moniker away from me, but I am going to give this game a double barrel thumbs down.
Okay.
From behind the shed.
DBN, I suspect I know your answer. Mm-hmm. However, I want to give you that opportunity to share your final thoughts and tell us why you're giving this thing a glowing thumbs up.
Boy, howdy. So here's the thing. I want to be clear, all right, to all those back in the day that said that DBN, he's so negative. Well, tell you what, I am not a pessimist. I'm a realist.
Back in the day.
All right. You're right. I'm a realist.
Like
and
Monday.
Yeah.
You mean this week?
All those people this morning who once again reminded me I'm the negative one. Look, here's the deal. I'm a realist. This is a definitive thumbs down for me for all the reasons you have already said. But I want to be clear. There are different types of thumbs down. We have defined a thumbs down for this show as we have no plans, or we don't believe that we will continue playing this. Right now, I've had couple thumbs downs, but not a whole lot. I typically land somewhere in the thumbs in the middle of not sure, interested, can see the potential, not sure. And the thumbs downs that I have had have almost all been situations where, hey, solid game, interesting, not for me. This gets 2 thumbs downs. All right, and my big toes, they're pointed down too. Okay, the game is not only completely not for me, and I will be deleting it. I'm excited that now I can guilt-free delete it. I did not delete it already, Mark. All right, I'm a good co-host.
Okay, I believe in you.
I did not delete it, but I'm excited to delete it because I did not enjoy it. I mean, there were parts that I enjoyed, but on the whole, did not enjoy it. And more than that, I give it the second thumbs down and the bonus toes down because I don't think it's a good game. I don't think most other people will enjoy it at the end of the day. And I don't have a whole lot of redeeming things to say about it because of that. And listen, someone somewhere will have fun with it. And that someone somewhere is probably a Warhammer fan. Okay? But if you're not a Warhammer fan, I just really think there's so many better. I mean, this is an obvious Hearthstone clone, and it's not even a good Hearthstone clone. Okay, so there are better Hearthstone clones out there, including Hearthstone, which I'm not that fond of either. That you can go and waste your time, and more importantly, waste your money on. That I think you'll enjoy more. So. Lots of appendages down for me.
That's an important part of the review, though, is yes, this game is clearly not for you. This game is not one that you anticipate playing or are excited. You're excited to delete it and not look back. But there are going to be folks that do play Warpforge and have a good time. And who are those folks? And that's part of what's important about our review. And I think
those
you're right. I
folks
think
are
it's going to
Warhammer
be
fans.
Warhammer fans. Mm-hmm. I think that is overwhelmingly going to be who enjoys this. Mark?
Yeah, my final thoughts are, for me to continue to play this game, it would have to have a monetary system that was at least as generous and as enjoyable as Gwent. Like, I didn't find Gwent to be overly generous, but I found for the Hearthstone clone market that Gwent was great in terms of the cards that you could get and how quickly you could build a collection. It's not generosity to the point where it punishes itself like Runeterra, but I really liked its sweet spot.
Well, by Hearthstone clone, you mean like pack opening progression?
Yeah. When I say Hearthstone clone, I don't mean like the game is the same because the gameplay is completely different. I mean in terms of like how you build a collection in game is like cracking packs, buying stuff in the shop, that sort of stuff.
Yeah.
New expansions, not just a couple of cards coming out, that sort of thing. The other side of that is I would have to love Warhammer already. I would be able to work past the fact that this game is largely boring if I loved Warhammer and I wanted a Warhammer game, and every time I stepped into it, I got that little bit of Warhammer fix that I may have only been able to get once a week or once every other week in my local game shop with my army. Like, as a Star Wars Legion miniature gamer, like, I can tell you that I am partially excited for Star Wars Unlimited this year because I love Star Wars and I want an easier way to play Star Wars stuff when I can't play Legion because I only get to play it once every couple of months because it's a 4-hour long investment in endless hours of mini assembling and painting leading up to that 4-hour investment of game time. And so, like, if I can sit down and play Unlimited for a little bit, be like, oh yeah, I can kind of get that fixed. Could totally see me, if I was a huge Warhammer fan, overlooking some of the flaws of the game and the monetary system wasn't so egregious, that I would wake up in the morning and this could be my kind of like wake up with coffee game if I loved Warhammer. Right. I don't want to work my brain out too much. I just want to complete a couple of quests, and I want to wake up with coffee. Right now, that's Warcraft Rumble for me. It's not a great game, but I play Warcraft Rumble with my coffee every morning for like 20 minutes. That's how I spend my early morning. I would do that if I was a Warhammer fan. That being said, I'm not a Warhammer fan, and I don't really care about their world. And to be honest, I think it's too grim and too dark for me. Yeah. And despite liking things that are kind of edgy, I still want something at least a little bit whimsical and not at all Bandle City in my life. And so
Bandle City continues to catch strays on this podcast.
Yeah, always, my friend. And so it's a thumbs down. It is not a all appendages down, but it is a firm warning that if you A, don't love Warhammer, and B, if you're looking for a game that isn't going to try to suck not even small amounts, huge amounts of money out of you right up front, you are not going to like this game. You will download this, you will play it for like an afternoon, and the next time you go to boot it up, you'll play a couple games, and then you'll be like, I don't think this is for me, and then you'll delete it.
You know, in Wreck-It Ralph, when there's like a whole variety of different kinds of games and all of that, like some lighter than others, like there's Pac-Man, which is super light, and then there's like other games where there's actually like complexity and like some darker characters too. But yeah, this is what Warpforge is. Warpforge is Hero's Duty, where it's literally nonstop intensity, over the top, to the point where it is just unappealing.
Well, certainly for us at least,
movie.
I guess, if you love that reference. Well, with all of that being said, our final thoughts on Warpforge, I think probably
this
wasn't
is, by the way,
surprising.
I want to commemorate this as our first universal thumbs down.
Oh, it is. You're right.
I think so.
Not even any
That
sideways
probably
thumbs.
hangs on
No
me.
sideways thumbs.
Anybody else.
Gibby has crossed over.
This
Welcome
is probably
to the
my
dark
fault,
side,
if
my
anything.
friend.
Yeah. Well, okay, so at least we're honest with you guys. We're not getting paid by anybody to do this thing.
It's true. Although, if you want to.
True reviews. Yeah, but if there's someone out there who wants to pay us, just let us know.
That's true. You just come and let us
I'll
know.
I'll give your game a thumbs down for money.
Easy.
I'll tell you I don't like your game for some cash.
Oh, wow, Gibby.
Well, let's announce our next game because we are moving on to a new card game next week. Now, I'm going to be here on next week's episode, and theoretically one's going to come out. I'm not sure. When the next episode comes out, we are going to be talking about a new card game. Now, this card game is available on Steam and Nintendo Switch. I do not believe it's available on iOS. I do think it's available on like PlayStation and stuff, though. So I think you can get it there. It might not be. It might just be Nintendo Switch. It's on Good Old Games. It's in the PlayStation Store. It's on
Switch.
Okay, it's on Switch, PlayStation Store. Looks like it's on Xbox as well. So it looks like it's on every place, but it doesn't look like it's on like iOS. Doesn't look like you can pick it up on your phone. This is going to be a roguelike deck builder, kind of akin to what we have covered in the past with things like
Monster Train,
Wild Frost, that sort of stuff.
Yeah.
But this game is really different and unique. I played its demo last year, and I absolutely loved it. We are going to be moving on to a game called Fights in Tight Spaces, which is a card game where you are playing a sort of silhouetted version of what's the movie with the guy who shoots 1 million people and never dies? He's a man of sheer determination. His dog gets killed or something, and his car gets stolen. John Wick.
Baba Yaga.
Yeah, it's kind of John Wick without guns. It's like a
I Am
classic
Legend?
kung fu. I Am Legend.
It's a game about
Shrek
Will
2?
Smith and his dog.
Fights in Tight Spaces is a roguelike card game battler, except you're going to be playing cards and moving a kung fu master around a board that is very small, usually like a 3x3 grid or a 5x5 grid, pretty small, while enemies are going to be coming in, thugs with bats and guns and bosses, and you are going to try to strategically move yourself around the board and beat everybody up on each level, and in between, you'll stop at places like the local gym to work out, or you'll stop at the bathroom to relieve yourself or something. You'll have all
Stop
of these
in the
little...
bathroom to work out.
Yeah, to work out.
You go to the laundromat and work out.
There's all of these little places that you'll go along the way to improve your deck and get better and you can improve cards in your deck by forging them up. You can also add new cards to your deck. You can increase your health pool, heal yourself, all of the things that you would come to know in one of these type of card games. But the gameplay itself is really, really cool. The game is right now $25. You can catch it on sale at other times, but if you want to play it with us, tough luck. Buy it for $25, evidently, because it's not on sale right now. I'm excited about this game, guys.
This is the kind of game that probably will go on sale pretty regularly. So keep your eyes peeled for that.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Are you guys excited about this game? I'm excited about this game. This is the one I was probably one of the ones I was most excited about covering this year.
To be honest, Mark is very rarely the one that is like hyping up the game, being like, guys, I really want us to cover this. Guys, I'm really excited about this. And this is the only one in recent history outside of Star Wars Unlimited that he's just been ranting about. And it's not just been recently. Like when the demo first came out and you tried it out, I mean, you were like, can we look at it now? And we're like, no, we have a full slate of games, Mark. But, Gibby and I have each had plenty of those, and this is the first one in recent memory that Mark's been like, guys, we have to cover this, which signals to me, because he so rarely does that.
He knows his games.
Yeah, that it's going to be cool. And even just me looking at a couple still images from it, I'm like, yeah, this looks sick. Cannot wait.
Yeah, very, very excited for it. I'm all aboard the hype train for fights in tight spaces.
Yeah, it's hard too. It is not
good.
It is not an easy game.
That was my complaint about Inscription. So
yeah,
we like hard games.
I don't think it's as hard as Wild Frost, but it leaves ample room to make mistakes. Let's put it that way.
That's good.
Leaves
I plan to.
ample room to make mistakes.
I plan to make mistakes.
Yeah. Oh, I can't wait for that. Well, that's going to do it for this episode, our final episode covering Warpforge. Thank you guys so much for tuning in. We appreciate all of our members of our community who are you guys are just awesome. We just appreciate you so much. Come along the journey with us and go download, pick up your copy of Fights in Tight Spaces in a couple of weeks. Record us a little bit of a review for yourself, what you think about the game, and we'll share it here on the show live. That's going to do it for this episode. Thanks so much for tuning in, and be sure to come back for next episode.